Back in November, we discussed the tragic case of Sara Sharif. If you're not familiar with her story, we'll link the episode in the description in the pinned comment for you. We'll give you a short recap before we get into the many updates that have taken place since we released our episode. Sara was a beautiful 10-year-old girl from the town of Woking in the UK. She was born on January 11, 2013 to parents Irfan Sharif and Olga Doman and was of Polish and Pakistani heritage. Her parents ultimately divorced and Irfan gained custody of Sara and her siblings and ended up in a council house in Horsell with Irfan's new wife Binish Batul and his brother Faisal Malik. On August 9, 2023, Irfan phoned emergency services in the UK to let them know that he had killed Sara because, in his own words, she was naughty. He claimed that it wasn't his intention to kill her, he had just beat her up too much. At the time he placed the call, he and his whole family fled to Islamabad, Pakistan. His wife, Binish Batul, made all of the travel arrangements.
All right. Let's go. So where in Pakistan you want to go, ma'am?
Islamabad.
Yeah. And from which airport?
And whichever one it is.
Okay. Your travel dates, please.
As possible tomorrow.
Hotel. And return?
Single.
Okay. And how many passengers will be traveling?
So, 4 adults and 4 kids.
Yeah, so here, ma'am, you have an option with Oman Air tomorrow night from Heathrow via Muscat to Islamabad.
What time?
8:50 at night, tomorrow night.
Any available in the morning? Is there anything in the morning?
Just a minute.
The following morning, Sara's body was recovered by the Surrey police. She had been placed in her bunk bed and hidden beneath a blanket. In addition to admitting to dispatchers that he was indeed the killer, Irfan also left a note behind that read,
"I swear to God that my intention was not to kill her, but I lost it. My daughter is Muslim. Can you bury her like a Muslim maybe? I will be back before you finish the post-mortem. Whoever sees this note, it's me, Irfan Sharif, who killed my daughter by beating. I am running away because I am scared, but I promise that I will hand over myself and take punishment. Love you, Sara." Sara's autopsy told a different story. Irfan may have said he loved his daughter, but when you read the report, I feel it becomes very difficult for Irfan to say he truly loved his daughter. The 10-year-old girl was covered in more than 70 separate injuries, which included human bite marks, scalds on her feet, bruises, a burn on her butt that was caused by placing a hot iron onto her skin, a broken hyoid bone, a puncture wound to the head, a traumatic brain injury, 11 spinal fractures, and other numerous injuries to her fingers, shoulder blades, and ribs. She also had injuries that showed evidence that Sara had been restrained and tortured over time. It would later be revealed that Sara had a hood placed over her head before being beaten with a metal pole and a cricket bat. There were so many injuries that it was actually impossible for examiners to figure out which of them actually caused her death. Sara's own father, Irfan Sharif, fully admitted that he was chiefly the one who tied Sara up, put a hood over her head, and beat her with a metal pole that was broken off of a high chair, as well as a cricket bat. Irfan originally admitted to police that he had done this multiple times as a form of discipline, but he later recanted his statement, changing his story to saying it only happened one time. British High Court Justice John Kavanagh called this fact out during Irfan's sentencing.
The marks were consistent with restraints being used, in other words, with Sara being tied up. Many of these injuries had tramline markings, which showed that she had been beaten with an elongated object. You, Irfan Sharif, have admitted to beating Sara on a number of occasions with a metal pole, part of a high chair. The pole was found at the property after Sara's death. You also admitted to beating Sara with a cricket bat, which was also found at the property. At one stage you admitted to doing this multiple times, but then you changed your evidence, would only admit to doing so once. I have no doubt that in fact this was a regular occurrence, at least towards the end. You also admitted to hitting her on the head with a mobile phone.
Now let us be clear here. As much as Irfan would like us to believe that he only did this once in a fit of rage, the evidence shows this clearly is not the case. And even if it was true, This isn't as simple as raising your hand against a child in anger. This is somebody tying somebody up, getting a bag to place over her head so he didn't have to look at her, and beating her multiple times with a metal pole and a cricket bat. For those in the States that don't know what a cricket bat is, we will put one on screen for you to see. This is not something you accidentally do without thinking. This is a calculated and deliberate act, and Irfan Sharif did this multiple times. It would not shock me if this was the act that was the final straw for Sara. Again, maybe Irfan in his twisted mind believed that he loved his daughter, but I think we can all agree there was anything but love taking place in this household, especially when you add Sara's stepmother, Binish Batul, and Sara's uncle, Faisal Malik, to the mix. Remember the bite marks we mentioned on Sara's body? There were 6 in total. 5 of these were on her arm, and the 6th was on the inside of her left thigh. Based on the size of these bite marks, there was no question that an adult was the one who was responsible, so the police were determined to find out who among these 3 was deranged enough to bite a 10-year-old girl as a form of punishment. So teeth impressions were requested from each of the 3 perpetrators, as well as from Sara's older brother, purely to rule him out. Both Irfan Sharif and Faisal Malik submitted impressions, and both were confirmed to not be the ones responsible for the bite marks on Sara. Binish Batul, however, refused to submit hers. Therefore, without any other suspects, it can be inferred that it was Binish who, for whatever sick reason, thought biting her stepdaughter was an acceptable way to discipline her. British High Court Justice John Kavanagh felt this was more than enough evidence to implicate Binish, and made that very clear during her sentencing.
The post-mortem investigation showed that Sara had 6 bite marks on her body. 5 of them were on her left arm and 1 was on the inside of her left thigh. The marks were made by an adult. You, Irfan Sharif and Faisal Malik, and Sara's older brother each provided teeth impressions, and each was excluded from being responsible for the tooth marks. You, Binish Batul, declined to give a tooth impression, and the only possible inference is that it was you who made these bite marks. Though the bite marks were not in themselves fatal injuries, the fact that you were prepared to assault Sara in this way provides an insight into the extent to which you were complicit in and comfortable with the abuse that Sara was suffering.
On September 12, 2023, police raided a home in Jhelum, Punjab, Pakistan, belonging to Irfan's father. There, they were able to locate Irfan's 5 surviving children who were unharmed, thankfully, and subsequently placed into foster care. On September 13th, all 3 adults were arrested at London's Gatwick Airport after flying back home by way of Sialkot and Dubai. September 14th, Irfan Sharif, Binish Batul, and Faisal Malik were arrested and charged with murder, along with an additional charge of causing or allowing the death of a child. Now, when we released our first episode on Sara's case, we included this following clip that led to a lot of discussion in the comment section, basically because Binish kept saying no comment over and over again. We are fully aware that no comment is the equivalent of pleading the fifth here in the United States. What was curious to us, however, is that she couldn't even say that she loved Sara, her own stepdaughter. Sure, maybe she's just following what her lawyer advised her to do, but I truly have a hard time imagining how saying that you loved and cared about your stepdaughter could be something so incriminating. Maybe we have some legal experts in the comments who could share their thoughts, because I'd certainly love to know. Either way, we'll share that clip with you now just so you can see what we're referring to.
Please, could you introduce yourself? What's your name?
So my name is Binish Batul.
And you are about to be interviewed for the offence of murder. What's your understanding of murder? What's your understanding of that offence?
Killing someone.
Yeah. Okay, so it's intentionally killing somebody. Okay, in very simple terms. Okay, that's the offence for which you've been arrested for, and that's the offence for which we're going to speak to you about. All right. What happened to Sara?
No comment.
What did you see?
No comment.
Whose choice was it? How you left Sara?
No comment.
You know, Dawn's just said, as you said in the video, you want to come back to the UK, clear your name in the UK courts. Well, here we are. This is the start of the process. So why would you not speak to us now?
No comment.
Who did that to Sara?
No comment.
Do you love Sara?
No comment.
Did you care about her at all?
No comment.
On December 11th, 2024, both Irfan Sharif and Binish Batul were found guilty on all counts. Faisal Malik was found not guilty on the charge of murder, but was found guilty of causing or allowing the death of a child. After the verdict, the police held the following press conference.
Good afternoon, everyone. Much closer? Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Craig Emerson, Detective Chief Inspector for Surrey Police. I've been the Senior Investigating Officer for this investigation. Today, after a 10-week trial, a jury has found Irfan Sharif and Binish Batul, the father and stepmother of 10-year-old Sara Sharif, guilty of her murder. Faisal Malik, Sara's uncle, was found guilty of causing or allowing her death. Sara was a bright and lively little girl who loved singing and dancing, and on behalf of Surrey Police, I would like to extend my deepest condolences to her mother Olga, her siblings, and all those who knew and cared for her. Sara's spirit and bravery and resilience in the face of the suffering that she endured has shone through from the vast inquiries that have been undertaken in this case. Sara's young life was brought to an end as a result of the brutal abuse and unspeakable violence inflicted on her by Sharif, Batul, which Malik did nothing to prevent. This case has shocked and horrified not only those who knew and loved her, but people across the country and around the world. On the 10th of August 2023, we received a phone call from Sara's father in which he told the operator that his daughter had died as a result of his actions. From this day, Surrey Police has worked tirelessly to build a case to prove that Sharif, Batul and Malik all played their part in Sara's death. During the trial, Sharif took the stand intending to blame Sara's death entirely on his wife before changing his story to accept some responsibility while still denying murder. Batul and Malik refused to take the stand at all, or provide any explanation what happened to Sara in their police interviews. All three defendants have only ever sought to preserve their own interests throughout this investigation and have shown no remorse for their truly dreadful behaviour. Sara's death has been one of the most difficult and distressing cases that Surrey Police has ever dealt with. I would like to thank those who came forward to provide information and those who gave evidence in such harrowing circumstances. I would like to thank the jury for their careful consideration of the evidence which has been presented throughout the trial. The murder of a child is absolutely shocking, but the horrific nature of the abuse Sara suffered during her short life has made this case particularly disturbing. Today, justice for Sara has been served, and our thoughts remain with Sara's mother and her siblings at this extremely difficult time. Thank you very much.
What must it have been like that little girl?
Thank you.
Over the last month?
At the heart of this trial was Sara Sharif, a happy, outgoing and lively 10-year-old girl who was cruelly abused and murdered by the two people closest to her. We have all seen Sara's smile shine out from the photos of her, but everyone involved with this case will always remember that utterly horrendous injuries and brutal treatment she received in the weeks leading up to her death. We cannot begin to imagine the suffering she went through in her own family home. Both defendants denied killing Sara. However, the appalling truth is that they, along with Faisal Malik, were all living in a small house and were all complicit in what was happening to Sara. The evidence given by some of the neighbours of the family highlighted their concerns about what was going on behind closed doors, yet none of the defendants did anything to stop or report the abuse that led to Sara's tragic death. It has been a painstaking operation by Surrey Police and the Crown Prosecution Service to build this case and be able to prove to the jury that Irfan Sharif and Binish Batul were both responsible for Sara's murder. By showing they were there in the run-up to Sara's death, we were able to prove that both of them played their part in killing her. This case was complicated further by the fact that all three defendants fled the country to Pakistan, and our CPS International unit played a significant role in helping us to prosecute this case successfully.
On December 17th, Justice Kavanaugh sentenced Irfan Sharif to a minimum term of 40 years in prison, Binish Batul to 33 years in prison, and Faisal Malik to 16 years. Sara's mother, Olga Domin, and her grandmother sat down with the Guardian to talk about what it was like identifying Sara's body.
Brali piżamkę w myszkamiki, miała kołodrę dziecięcą przykrytą, ale żadna matka nie powinna oglądać takiego czegoś. Miała policzek napuchnięty, z drugiej strony miała siniaki. Do tej pory, jak zamykam oczy, to widzę, jak moje dziecko wyglądało.
To nie była Sara. Całkiem zmieniona, posiniaczona. Gdyby mi ktoś nie powiedział, że to jest Sara, to bym w życiu nie uwierzył.
There's a lot more to share about the history of this case and Irfan's behavior, but we've done a whole episode on that, which again, we'll link for you down below. Now we're going to get to the updates in the case that have come out since the 3 adults were sentenced last month.
So according to the BBC, The Guardian, and many other news outlets, pretty soon after Irfan and company were jailed, their fellow inmates decided to exact their own form of prison justices as a revenge for Sara. On New Year's Day of 2025 at London's Belmarsh prison, 2 inmates took it upon themselves to attack Irfan in his cell with a piece of a tuna can. He suffered cuts to his face and received medical treatment at the prison hospital and survived the attack.
The killer dad of 10-year-old Sara Sharif is terrified of returning to his prison cell after he was slashed in the neck and face with the jagged lid of a tin of tuna. Irfan Sharif, who was ambushed by 2 inmates, fears others could target him in further attacks. 43-year-old Sharif was assaulted on New Year's Day and then treated in the healthcare unit of Belmarsh Prison in South London. Justice sources have today told The Sun he may now have to be segregated for his own safety. However, Sharif, who was given a 40-year minimum term for the murder of Sara, cannot be kept away from other inmates indefinitely. And one source told us, Sharif is terrified and now fears other attacks. He is not yet back on the wing and will be in no rush to return.
Now, a big question that came up in the comments was if canned goods were actually allowed in prisons, because that seemed to be a bit of a security issue. Some folks even believed it to be fake news because they've never heard of such a thing. Since neither of us have ever been to prison and couldn't tell you if canned goods are allowed, we decided to reach out to our good friend Google for an answer. We actually found a couple of different answers, so it looks like this depends on where you're from. One source indicated that yes, canned goods are typically allowed in US prisons, but there are some restrictions. Canned goods must be commercially packaged, airtight, and hermetically sealed. They must also not require any cooking. Other restrictions indicate that canned goods must be 16 ounces or less and cannot be in glass containers. Beverages must be in cans, pouches, or boxes and are no larger than 32 ounces. Meats must be pre-cooked, cured, smoked, or cold cut. Seafood must be cooked, cured, or smoked and without shells. The food items in question can be purchased at the prison commissary and, for states that allow it, brought in during a visit. Now, according to the gov.uk website, which is most important in this case since it took place in the UK, inmates are indeed allowed tin food items that are to be kept at designated places specific by the prison administration. So for those listening outside of the UK, Belmarsh Prison is classified as a Category A jail and is located in southwest London. According to some sources, the prison has been described as Britain's Guantanamo Bay. This is due to the long-term detention of terrorism suspects without charge. It's said to house some of the most dangerous prisoners in the nation, so I don't think it comes as a surprise that some of them might have taken issue with Irfan and what he was there for. Belmarsh, or Hellmarsh as it's known to inmates, is also the home of grinder killer Stephen Port, whom we covered many years ago. We'll be sure to link that case for you as well if you're interested in some of our older episodes. Before we go on making Irfan's attacker a hero, we should probably talk about who he is and exactly what he's in Belmarsh for. Irfan was attacked by 45-year-old Stephen Sansom, who murdered a 38-year-old woman named Sara Mayhew. He and his co-defendant, 49-year-old Gemma Watts, then proceeded to dismember the woman with power tools and dispose of her body in various locations around southwest London. Some of her remains were recovered in a park in Croydon by a dog walker, while others were recovered from the River Wandle. It's unclear how Miss Mayhew was killed, but at autopsy, it was discovered that she had bruising to her skull, 2 fractures to 2 vertebrae near her voice box, and had her head shaved. Stephen pled guilty to murder as well as perverting the course of justice. He pled not guilty to 3 counts of making indecent images of children. However, this wasn't even the first time Stephen had killed someone. On Christmas Eve of 1998, he stabbed taxi driver Terrence Boyle in the throat. Mr. Boyle, who was a father of 2 children, staggered to a nearby house for help, but died on the doorsteps. Stephen was sentenced to a minimum of 20 years in prison and was released in December of 2019, barely having served his minimum sentence. So although Stephen did what a lot of you would like to do to Irfan, he is still clearly an evil person. But this isn't the only update that's come across our desks. There's actually 2 more we've learned about just this week. Being in the US, it can be difficult to keep up to date with the news going on in the UK, especially if it's an emerging case or didn't make international headlines. Again, we have to thank our friend Katie over in the UK for keeping us abreast of the situation as it unfolds across the pond.
On January 20th, the BBC posted an article indicating that the Solicitor General decided to appeal Irfan Sharif's sentence. Now, for those unfamiliar with what that is, a Solicitor General oversees all civil and criminal appeals to ensure quality and consistency and becomes personally involved in selected cases. There's more to it, but this is the simplest explanation we can give. The current Solicitor General in the UK is Lucy Rigby, who was appointed by Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Now, an appeal might make you initially have cause for concern, and that's understandable because here in the US, this normally means the accused is trying to overturn their sentence. However, that's not what's happening here. Lucy Rigby actually found that Irfan's sentence of 40 years to life in prison with the possibility of parole to be too lenient for what he did. I think many are in agreement here. I personally would be quite happy if Irfan Sharif never saw the light of day again. She referred the case to the Court of Appeal, and according to a spokesperson for the Attorney General's office, it is now for the court to decide whether to increase the sentence. Irfan himself is also attempting to appeal a sentence, and a court date has yet to be set for either appeal. In other news, an appeal was won to name Sara Sharif's family court judges. This was announced on the BBC on January 24th. The family court judges in question are the ones who gave Irfan Sharif full custody of Sara in October of 2019. This is the same judge who had overseen the family hearings from 2013 to 2015. The judge in question was fully aware of Irfan's 5 prior arrests and his history of violence. The court was also aware at the time of multiple romantic partners, further alleging that Irfan had falsely imprisoned them in addition to his violent behavior. According to the news source, Mr. Justice Williams ruled in December that the media could not name the judges involved in the historical family court cases related to the 10-year-old, as well as social workers and guardians, due to a real risk of harm from a virtual lynch mob. This might sound strange, as judges aren't normally provided anonymity in any of the cases we've covered, but according to the BBC, the judges had concerns given the often inflammatory nature of public and media commentary. However, the BBC and other news outlets weren't satisfied with that, nor should they have been, and they managed to appeal that decision in the interest of transparency. As of the 24th, the Court of Appeals ruled that the unnamed judges must be revealed within 7 days. It's been noted that 2 of the 3 judges have conveniently retired in this time. According to Sir Geoffrey Voss, who is the Master of the Rolls in England and Wales, in the circumstances of this case, the judge had no jurisdiction to anonymize the historic judges either on 9 December 2024 or thereafter. He was wrong to do so.
We're going to keep an eye out for updates as they become available. I don't think this is a if they become available situation, because look how many updates have come out in just 1 month. Now, here in the States, it's rare for a case in the UK to be so easily accessible. We've both had people who aren't interested in true crime bring up Sara's story with us. So with this being such a high-profile story, it's very unlikely that it will fade into obscurity like so many murders we've covered. At the very least, we'll know in about a week the names of the judges involved, and we'll probably post some sort of update when that information is brought to light. We don't normally do update episodes like this, but we made an exception because of the number of requests we received to make one. So let us know if this is something you'd like to see more of going forward. But until then, we love you and stay safe out there. Hey everyone, we don't normally post an update after the fact, but as of today, January 31st, 2025, The judges involved in the Sharif family court proceedings have been named, and they are Judges Allison Rayside, Peter Nathan, and Sally Williams. Now, Peter Nathan and Sally Williams have since retired, but Allison Rayside, who dealt with the majority of the hearings relating to Sara, including allowing both Sara and her siblings to remain in their parents' care, remains an active judge.